Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Trinidad Prime Minister says the reintroduction of the death penalty in the region will be too costly. Opposition voices support of reaching consensus as Jamaica embarks on the process of constitutional reform. And later in sports, changing ISA eligibility rules for foreign nationals for new academic year. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shane Masters and here are the details. Despite the passionate call from one CARICOM leader to re-implement the death penalty as a response to rising violence and crime in the region, it seems the suggestion will not go very far. Already there's pushback from another prime minister that the measure will not have the desired effect.
Will the call for the reintroduction of the death penalty by St. Vincent and the Grenadines Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves get the support of other CARICOM leaders? So far, that doesn't seem to be the case, with at least one leader already stating that the measure would not be a deterrent to the crime problem facing the region. Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Keith Rowley, says the death penalty, in his view, serves more as a punishment.
We have worked ourselves to a position where operationally it is very difficult to get to a stage where you can carry out the death penalty. So if you observe in my government in Trinidad and Tobago, we did not spend much time looking at the death penalty as an avenue for dealing with crime and frightening people away from crime, because we know what that means in terms of jumping through hoops. We are subject to another culture where the death penalty in the United Kingdom is anathema.
He further noted that there are significant costs associated with the death penalty if a convict is to appeal the decision with the UK-based Privy Council.
And if you're fighting that, what you're really fighting is $1 million or $2 or $5 or $10 million expense, which hardly will bring you success. Every single person on death row is going to cost the taxpayer millions of dollars as that person is fighting for his or her life. And the question is, how much of that fight are you prepared to take?
In the meantime, Dr. Rowley has sought to clear the air on the intent of a letter which is to be sent to the United States government regarding gun trafficking.
We are not here taking on a fight with the United States government or the United States. We are taking the fight to gun manufacturers who at this time are protected by United States laws. I don't know that that will always be so for all times, but it does not prevent us from making a claim and from complaining that gun manufacturers, the products that they are producing are ending up in our territories and killing us.
Halshane Burke, TVJ News.
And as CARICOM leaders pressure the United States to stem the flow of illegal guns to the region, concerns that enough attention is not being placed on corruption in the region. At the Regional Crime Symposium in Trinidad on Tuesday, journalists questioned why the leaders did not focus their attention on how corruption, even among politicians, could be fueling the gun trade in the region. It comes amidst an announcement that CARICOM will be sending a letter to the U.S. to express concerns about gun trafficking.
It was mentioned, one person talked about the 3 C's and very pointedly made the point that there was a 4th C that was a major contributor, and that 4th C was identified as corruption.
Now, Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley further indicated that CARICOM understands that corruption, especially at ports of entry, is driving gun trafficking.
And especially where guards who are supposed to guard the guards are in fact doing the opposite and facilitating, and we're familiar with that. So it's a given that for these things to flourish, there has to be some element of indifference or corruption.
Opposition leader Mark Golding is making it clear that the opposition is in support of reaching consensus as Jamaica embarks on the process of constitutional reform. The plan is for Jamaica to transition to a republic with a prime minister as head of government and a president as head of state. Under the proposal, the Prime Minister would appoint the President after consulting with the Leader of the Opposition. In Parliament on Tuesday, Opposition Leader Mark Golding explained why a two-thirds majority of both Houses of Parliament should also be required.
We believe that any president must be somebody who has bipartisan support and the support of the wider public. That is fundamental because the role of a president includes being involved in making appointments to numerous sensitive posts. And that can often be contentious. And therefore, a president who has the support, the trust and confidence of the government and the opposition is very important.
Mr. Golding adds that the Constitutional Reform Committee should take the time to reach consensus on outstanding issues, including Jamaica's final court of appeal. Legal and Constitutional Affairs Minister Marlene Malahou Ford said a public engagement and communication subcommittee will develop a public education program on the process of constitutional reform. Labour Minister Karl Samuda is expected to address the country today in Parliament about several issues being debated in the public. Chief among them are contract issues with private security guards and investigations into complaints about the farm work programme. During this morning's post-cabinet press briefing, Information Minister Robert Morgan, when pressed about the issues, said the Labour Minister will be giving an update later today.
About the security guard issue today in Parliament, and he will be speaking about the farm work issue at his sector. But I will.
A recent Gleaner article reported that the Labour Ministry commissioned panel found that the working conditions of Jamaicans on the farm work program in Canada contradicted claims of inhumane treatment. Last year, the Employment and Social Development Canada revealed that there were more than 2,000 reports alleging abuse and employment breaches under the program.
There are a few issues that rose to the level of what was described as a slave-like environment. And I think a lot of the workers were a bit upset that many of them were engaged in work on farms that had reasonable accommodation. They were being compensated appropriately, but their engagement was being caricatured as if they were involved in slavery, which is not so, and the evidence does not support that. But the minister will be making a fulsome statement to Parliament on it.
Jamaica is still not out of a COVID-19 pandemic. That notice from the Ministry of Health and Wellness following increased reports of respiratory illnesses. In a statement today, the Health Minister says admissions for severe acute respiratory illnesses have increased in the past 2 weeks. Weekly visits to public health facilities for flu-like illnesses have also increased for children up to 5 years old, as well as those between ages 5 and 59. The minister says flu and respiratory syncytial virus, RSV, cases are not unusual in Jamaica at this time of the year. However, medical facilities have reported seeing the COVID-19 virus together with influenza B, influenza A, and RSV as the more common respiratory viruses in Jamaica at this time. And it's time for a break here on the Midday News, but please stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. Deputy Superintendent of Police in charge of crime in the St. Ann Police Division, Linton Bailey, has revealed that there is significant improvement with the traffic situation in the parish. He pointed to the recently concluded entertainment events held over the Easter holiday, noting they were a success as they were properly policed and this prevented a traffic gridlock. Now, DSP Bailey says the Deputy Superintendent has been assigned to address the traffic situation in St. Ann going forward. He's, however, calling on the St. Ann Municipal Corporation to make some adjustments to some roads across the parish to help reduce traffic pileups.
The exchange traffic situation. What we want is that piece of road from under the bridge that leads back to Content Garden to be rehomed. I think there are some iron barriers erected in the vicinity of the Shar Park Hotel. And if that is reopened, then we will get a major ease from traffic traversing from Exchange to and from Exchange, as also the St. Mary area.
A thorough investigation is underway in St. Anne following the physical assault of a bystander allegedly by a police constable in Brownstone on Saturday. According to reports, the police constable was in the process of reprimanding a bus driver for a road traffic breach when the bystander commented on the manner in which he was treating the driver. In a video posted to social media site TikTok, the officer was seen grabbing the bystander's clothes and pushing him against the bus. After numerous calls from other bystanders, the police officer walked away. Head of the St. Anne Police, SSP Dwight Powell, says he's aware of the incident and a detailed investigation is being conducted. And it's now time for the Business Minute.
The cost of services in the category housing, water, electricity, gas and other fuels division fell by 1.8% for the 12 months to March this year. The Statistical Institute of Jamaica says lower rates for electricity led to a 4.2% decline in the index for the group electricity, gas and other fuels. A decrease in the rates for water and sewage resulted in a 2.5% fall in the index for water supply and miscellaneous services. These declines were, however, tempered by a 0.2% increase in costs associated with the group maintenance, repair and security of the dwelling. Further afield, massive job cuts are imminent at Facebook parent company Meta. The social media giant is expected to announce details about new job cuts Wednesday. It's part of a months-long downsizing and restructuring effort that will trim 10,000 employees amid multiple waves of layoffs. According to an internal memo obtained by the Washington Post, Meta's head of human resources, Lori Gola, wrote Tuesday evening that the company will start notifying employees on its technical teams whose jobs are being cut. Meta is also poised to announce newly reorganized teams and management hierarchies as the social media giant seeks to become leaner and more efficient. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Hal Shane Burke.
And here's a preview of what's coming up in this evening's health report.
In this evening's health report, we look at fibroids.
A lot of women are worried about having fibroids, even if it's just incidentally found. And by incidental, I mean that they have no problems with it. They are asymptomatic. And they only discovered that they had fibroids because they went in for a routine checkup, or if they did some other investigation for something else and the fibroids were identified.
That's a health report in Primetime News at 7. And now for today's healthy living tip. Avoid added salt. Limit high sodium processed and packaged foods. Check your blood pressure daily with a home monitor. Lose weight, especially around the waist, and avoid or limit alcohol.
Time now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel is expected to be elected for a second term. The vote by members of Cuba's National Assembly started this morning. Diaz-Canel replaced Raul Castro as the head of the Cuban government in 2018. It marked the first time a non-Castro began to lead the communist-run island nation after Fidel Castro led a revolution in 1959. On the international scene, an investigation is underway in Beijing, China, after 29 people died at a hospital after a fire broke out. It is one of the deadliest fires the capital has seen in 2 decades. According to Chinese authorities, 71 patients were evacuated from the facility. 12 people have been detained on suspicion of gross negligence, including the hospital's director and construction workers. And half the hospitals in Sudan's capital are out of action due to intensifying clashes, even as the number of casualties rise. According to the World Health Organization, WHO, at least 270 people have been killed and more than 2,600 injured since the clashes erupted on Saturday between Sudan's army and a paramilitary group. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Carrie Simpson.
And we head to a quick break. When we come back, we'll have the Midday Sports Report. Jordan Ford is standing by.